Swati, Secretary General of the Madras Chamber, and happy to
Yes, we can.
have
Go
you.
ahead, please. We can hear you.
Okay, happy to have you all for this program on this Lebanon port blast, a wake-up call. In fact, immediately after this scary incident, the logistic committee was discussing, and we decided to have this program mainly to prevent further happenings of such incidents. So we are here for this program. So I request all of you to probably post your questions in the Q&A window so that at the end of the discussion we can take them up. And I now request Mr. Srivatsram, President Madras Chamber, to give his welcome remarks.
Good afternoon to everyone, all our panelists and participants. I extend a especially warm welcome to our panelists, Mr. Govindarajan, Mr. Jeff Leach, Mr. Rangan, Mr. Karunesan, Mr. Praveen Patak, and also to our expert committee GC member, Mr. Krishnan, our expert committee chairman, Uday, Padmanabhan, and Ashwin. I'd like to start off by telling you a little bit about the Madras Chamber. We are one of the premier industrial promotion organizations in the southern part of India. We are currently in our 184th year of service. Established in 1836, we were the second chamber to be established in the country, just about a fortnight after Mumbai. And we are one of the promoter chambers of ASSOCHAM. So we've been very much involved in the growth and commerce of industry in the southern part of the country, and almost all the leading industries in the state are part of our membership. We've been long connected with ports, both the seaport and the airport in Tamil Nadu, and also with the EXIM committee. As a matter of fact, historically, we were instrumental in bringing the port to Chennai after many years of struggle all those years back. We strongly believed in a good infrastructure and support system, and the chamber works in terms of representing industry with the government, and to enable us in that, we have a number of expert committees. The expert committee on logistics who've organized this program is very active, and there are a number of issues which we have represented both at the state level as well as the central level successfully. We have also taken delegations to ports, international ports, and we've had relationships with Port of Antwerp and Dubai. Now, coming to the specific topicality of this seminar, the blast in Beirut, it's a cruel reminder to the fact that in spite of all the rules and regulations being in place, these type of things happen. Of course, in the case of Lebanon, it was also part of the bureaucracy and the lack of decision making, from what I understand. But there have been similar incidents that have taken place. For example, in Tianjin in 2015, there was an explosion that killed hundreds of people. And invariably, when such disasters happen, there is immediate attention and there's a knee-jerk reaction. Though we have all the policies and regulations for safety and security, this type of incident reminds us that culture and practice on the ground is as important as having policies in place. And it's important for us to understand that compliance to safety is a commitment that an individual makes. It is probably easier to drive this through in these very unfortunate COVID times when people are significantly more aware of health and safety than normally. The particular incident involved ammonium nitrate, which is used in the fertilizer industry. And there are elaborate rules that govern it, but I do know that the minute the blast in Beirut took place, there were all these stockpiles which suddenly became visible. And given the fact that this is just one potential explosive commodity which is out there, and there are a number of others which are normally stored in India, when although we have adequate rules and regulations, which probably the panelists can go into, the issue is really how do we bring about a work culture around that area so that these policies and practices are being followed. A brief overview of what we have planned in our webinar. We have very, very distinguished panelists who have been very involved in the process. People from ports, who are handling safety experts, and I'm sure that our panelists will bring to light a lot of issues that we perhaps take for granted. But these are the differences that make sure that we have a safe working environment and can improve the safety culture in our country going forward. Uh, with that, I'd like to thank all the panelists for participating in this event. And I would also like to thank especially the logistics committee and Mr. Krishnan for helping to organize this event. And of course, our 160 participants who are there for this event. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Can I now invite Mr. Krishnan to introduce the moderator, Mr. Govindarajan, and also say a few words?
Good afternoon, everybody. President Sri Swatsram, distinguished panelists. It's indeed a privilege for me that I have been chosen to introduce none other than Mr. Bashim Govindarajan, CEO, Tirwin Management Services. Govind, as he is known to many of us across the globe, or in India, he is better known as Guruji. He started his career as a loadmaster at a Chennai-based private air operator in the year 1974. And then he moved over to Air India. And during his stint with Air India, he worked in different stations in different capacity. And from middle of 1992, faculty and chief instructor of dangerous goods regulations, in addition to skills training. He was also responsible for developing, designing, and managerial and behavioral training as well. In addition to his training, he was also responsible for regulatory compliance for the ground operations of Air India and Air India Express. And he was also the member of the IATA Dangerous Goods Training Task Force. Taking an early retirement from Air India in 2008, he ventured on his own and started an institute called Tirwin Management Services, which is both DGCA and IATA approved training organization. In addition to providing training, Tirwin is also involved in providing consultation services, and specific area of specialization is penalty mitigation services, especially with international regulatory authorities. The list of Govindarajan can cover the entire session of this webinar, so I stop there. Just with a concluding remark, that Tirwin Management Services is also a member of the Madras Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Krishnan. Can I now request Mr. Bashim Govindarajan to take over the proceedings? He will introduce the panelists and then discussing with them. Please.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be in this webinar. What is more important is introducing the very distinguished panelists. And when I see Mr. Rangan, I was remembered of a joke which was happening a couple of weeks back. When the +2 results came, there was a WhatsApp message which said, 20 years back, our marks were in centigrade, and today students are getting in Fahrenheit. When I saw my educational qualification and I could see Mr. Rangan, I was amazed. He is a Bachelor of Science from the University of Madras. He is a Bachelor of Engineering Mechanical, again from the University of Madras. He is a Class 1 Certificate of Competency from Singapore. Bachelor of Law, Master of Laws, Barrister at Law from the United Kingdom, Fellowship and Assessment Programs, and he is the consultant, he is the Guru. And when Krishnan told that I am the Guruji, I am happy to introduce the Mahaguruji, who has got so much of knowledge and so much of experience on a worldwide spectrum. Then I go to Mr. Jeff Leach, my old friend, but he doesn't look so old. I happened to see him maybe 20 years back in a Florida pub, and we were trying to get some curry for us. From that time, I am in touch with him. We are trying to be close in many of the national matters. He was head of the Dangerous Goods Office of the Civil Aviation Authority of UK. In that period, he was also the member of International Civil Aviation Organization, DGP, that is what we call it as Dangerous Goods Panel, as the rule-making body for the global air transportation of hazardous material. Very great experience. And in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, no, 2014, he left the CAA and started his own consultancy company, which is called the DGO. He has got varied experience. I thought that I must make use of him, especially for the storage and challenges of lithium batteries, since Chennai is trying to become a big hub for lithium battery movement, and I'm sure it will help all our members. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us today. Then I move to our own person, Mr. Ennarasu. He is from Chennai, and he has been with us for quite some time. We are all good friends. We meet, we talk now and then. Young person, specialized in airport management. He was. He basically is an engineering, mechanical engineering. He has done his MBA. Then in 2004, he joined Container Terminal of Chennai under the DP World. Then 2015, he joined the Adani Group as CEO of Mudra and Tuna Airports. Since 2018, he's on his own. He's running this company. And if I were to tell you about the awards that he has got, as Kishan was telling, probably it will take the whole time of the day. Then I want to introduce Sri Praveen Pathak. He is the Chief Technical Officer of Royal Sundaram General Insurance. Praveen is also a chemical engineer and an associate in fire insurance from Insurance Institute of India. He has over 30 years of experience in the insurance industry with specialization in underwriting, claims, and risk management functions. He involves in underwriting large and complex risks. He leads a team of risk engineers who are involved in the assessment of high-value risk, devising risk mitigation plans, managing exposure in property and casualty lines. Thank you, Praveen, for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
I welcome Mr. Raman, Mr. Jeff, Mr. Ennarasu, and Praveen Pathak, and I'm sure you are going to give the best possible of the insight of what the subject is all about today. Let me now go to Mr. Rangan. I have chosen Rangan for two reasons. Start with one, he is the eldest of the entire team of today's panelists. So, Rangan sir, namaskar. You have been associated with very many shipping lines, seaports, and safety audits of major companies. This ammonium nitrate, it may be inappropriate for me to person from Singapore. Singapore may not import ammonium nitrate. I do not know. Please correct me. My understanding is if there is a chemical, if there is a fertilizer manufacturing unit in that country, they will be importing a lot of ammonium nitrate. Singapore, considering the size, you may not directly import ammonium nitrate. But the fact remains, your global exposure, you will certainly know a great thing about ammonium nitrate. Can you give a bird's eye view of ammonium nitrate so that we kickstart what are we in it? Mr. Rangan. Mr. Rangan?
Think. Mr. Rangan, you are on mute.
Hello.
Yes, we could hear you now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Govindarajan, for the kind words, and also for Madras Chamber for organizing this webinar arising out of the incident in Lebanon. While ammonium nitrate is in the center stage arising out of the Lebanon incident, I think we all should think beyond ammonium nitrate, how generally we have to take care of the dangerous goods which international community regularly exports and imports throughout the world. So while we'll dwell on ammonium nitrate, the overall perspective should be tomorrow it could be some other chemicals. So are we going to have one webinar for each of the chemicals? Then the rest of our lifetime is not sufficient. So let us learn from this incident what we need to do overall. Now, before going to ammonium nitrate, I would like to explain some of the facts connected with this particular incident. This incident happened on the 4th of August around 6 p.m. local time, that is Beirut time. And the ship was, or the cargo unloaded from the ship. The ship anyway sank about 2 years before near the wharf of the port. There was before the explosion, the main quantity of 2,750 tons of ammonia nitrate. Some welding works were going on to repair the door of the warehouse, and there was some white smoke coming out nearby. And this welding work stopped by noon on that day. So between noon and 6 p.m. when the actual explosion took place, no one knows what has happened. Whether some of the welding sparks have fallen in and incipient fire has started and that has resulted. Whether anybody noticed is, nothing is known. All we know around 6 o'clock or 5:30, 5:45, some small fires nearby the main warehouse number 12, and then the big blast happened. Disaster waiting to happen. Now, what was the impact of this disaster? It was told it is equivalent to 3.3 in the Richter scale. And it is about, impact was 10% of the nuclear bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima. That was the impact we had. And the detonation velocity, it is ranging from 2,500 to 3,000 meters per second. But if you want to put it in the perspective where everybody will understand, it is about 900 to 10,000 kilometers per hour. In other words, Chennai to London is about 9,000 plus kilometers. So if you have been in that velocity, you should be reaching London from Chennai in 1 hour. And if you want to put it in the Mach scale, it varies between 7.2 to 8.7 Mach. Now, recently India has acquired the Rafale fighter jet from France. The maximum speed of the fighter jet is 1,400 kilometers per hour, as opposed to 10,000 kilometers per hour of this velocity. And that is 1.3 Mach. So that we can imagine, and I am sure all of you would have seen a lot of pictures, the devastation that has caused. Why? Because of this velocity was going in 240 kilometers away in Cyprus. You can hear this. Damage to the international airport in Beirut, 9 kilometers away, untold misery. But if you go to the fundamental part of it, the ship was not sent out of the port because the port dues accumulated to the tune of $100,000. The estimated damage is 10 to 15 billion US dollars. So there is a proverb which says, penny wise, pound foolish. There cannot be any better example than this, because people did not realize what is that they are keeping under their belly. The volume they have been keeping and the magnitude of damage this can cause. So you trade off 100,000 for 10 to 15 billion US dollars. How long it will take to bring Beirut back to the original shape is anybody's guess. Will it ever happen? It's again question mark given the economic condition of the state. Immediately, the grain silo, which contains about 85% of their cereals, is totally demolished, and Beirut imports about 60% of the national cereals. So this is the aftermath of this incident. Now coming to ammonium nitrate itself, it is a harmless substance by itself, but in association with oil, and you leave it for a long time, condensation takes place, and then it becomes a deadly combination. So the question is, it is an innocent chemical. If you go to IMDG classification, Australia classifies this as 5.1, but the globalized harmonized system classifies as number 9. So that is the range, but nevertheless, by itself, he is an innocent fellow, but he becomes a villain in the hands of wrong people. The way it is being stored, it is being monitored, and of course, it is used primarily for manufacturing fertilizers. Of course, it is also used to create explosives at the mining and the construction industry. Getting into the wrong hands, the terrorists also using it. Now, this Timothy McGuire of United States, he loaded 2 tons of ammonium nitrate in a lorry and banged into the Oklahoma federal building. So that is all you need. So ammonium nitrate by itself, as Mr. Govindarajan has read, IMDG code provides all the guidance, everything. But if you choose not to follow, not to ignore, for whatever reasons, that's a problem. Then coming back to the ship, because all this will help the future panelists to dwell on this. The ship itself is about 34 years old. It has got an IMO number. It was originally built as a suction dredger in 1986, and it was Japanese built and Japanese flag. By the time the ship sank in Beirut, it has changed the flag 7 times. Japanese flag, South Korean flag, Belize, Panama, Georgia, and currently it is said is Moldovan. A lot of flags of convenience. This concept will be dwelt later by other panelists. And it has also gone through the name change 5 times. The current owner is a Russian, and up to now, investigative journalism could not conclusively establish who is the owner of the cargo, who owns the ship, which company has given the insurance for this ship as well as the cargo. All documents are there. Nobody can prove the authenticity of all these documents. So that is the regime under which the whole world is flying or international trade is happening. So this is the base I will set now. And just to conclude, there were between 1916 and 2020, or 1916 and last 100 years, there were 31 incidents involving ammonium nitrate from 31 different countries, with United States contributing the maximum 11 incidents, and over 2,500 people have killed, including the Lebanon incident. So this is the history of ammonium nitrate, what it can cost. I will hand over to Mr.
Thank you.
Govindarajan.
Thank you, sir. Excellent insight. Excellent insight. We could get the best. Now I move to the air segment. Jeffrey. Jeff, we all know that it is 5.1, but it can also be classified as 0 to 22, and it can be brought under explosives 1.1D. When it is classified as 0 to 22 and brought as 1.1D, it is forbidden on air transport. On the contrary, if it is classified as 1942 or 2067, it is permitted on passenger aeroplane, meeting the packing requirements of the packing instructions. Can you throw some light on this ammonium nitrate finding its place on a passenger aeroplane? Has it shown any incidents of importance for us?
Well, thank you very much, Govind, and good afternoon to everybody. It's an honour to be invited to talk to you. My only sadness is that I'm not in your wonderful country, actually in person. Govind, would you like me perhaps to set the scene about the framework or the legal framework about the regulations for air transport first of all, and then I'll come on to the specifics of ammonium nitrate, if you like.
Your regulations will be regulated to related to air transport, right?
Well, possibly, but of course there's a higher power than IATA. So let me just share my hopefully I'll share my content.
You can share it, sir.
Okay, so hopefully that's is that sharing now?
Yeah.
Okay, so just to give you a background, as my speciality, I've worked for, well, I was for 32 years with the UK Civil Aviation Authority, so aviation is my specialism. So I'll just talk a little bit about the transport of dangerous goods in air transport and some of the other modes as well, to see where the regulations come from. Govind just mentioned IATA, but there are, as I said, there are higher powers at work with regard to dangerous goods. Now, in air transport, I'm sure we've all flown on aircrafts. It might be a while before we can fly on them again, but on an aircraft, you'll see here is a 747, a cross section, and you'll see that passengers are very close to the cargo, which is carried beneath their transport is fire, and you'll see that the passengers are quite close. We're only about 18 inches away from literally all kinds of things. A lot of people would think that only baggage is below our feet, but of course there's lots of cargo. And it's absolutely essential that cargo, and particularly dangerous goods, is treated properly so that it doesn't pose a danger to the aircraft or the passengers. On a passenger aircraft, there is a means of fighting a fire or suppressing a fire. There isn't necessarily on a cargo aircraft, so the cargo operators are very vulnerable to fire. So, and I'll come on to the regulations in a moment. Now, there have been a number of accidents over the years caused by dangerous goods which have not been prepared properly in accordance with the regulations. Now, back in 1973, the three crew were killed on a Pan Am Boeing 707 because nitric acid hadn't been correct. We shouldn't just concentrate on ammonium nitrate. There are many other dangerous goods that can cause us serious harm. So this was back in 1973, but back as far as 1956, the first set of regulations, the IATA regulations came into place. But that was the first fatal accident, if you like. But it's not only caused by dangerous goods in cargo. In 1995, we had a loss of an aircraft because of dangerous goods in baggage. And of course, because in air transport, passengers may carry things in their baggage which they shouldn't do. And in this case, a person carried a can of fuel in their baggage, which they believe was ignited on the aircraft. And there have been others. So there's an example of a FedEx aircraft that was carrying something that they didn't know about. And the worst accident in aviation back in 1996, where 105 passengers and 5 crew were killed on board this very aircraft. Properly prepared pieces of the aircraft, actually, which were called chemical oxygen generators. Next time you're on an aircraft, above your head is what's called a chemical oxygen generator to provide you oxygen in the event of a depressurization. But if they're not prepared correctly for transport, they can cause a fire, and that's what happened, sadly, in the ValueJet accident. So it is absolutely essential that dangerous goods comply with the various international regulations. Now, Mr. Rangan mentioned IMO. You'll see here but the actual regulations originate from the United Nations. It's the United Nations who decide what are dangerous goods, and they assign what is called a UN, the United Nations number, and the various modes of transport base their regulations on the requirements, or the recommendations, should I say, of the United Nations. So you'll see here that ICAO, of the panel that developed the regulations, as Govind said, but we also have in Europe ADR, which is for surface by road, RID, which is rail, and then another set of international regulations, the IMO. And so because the United Nations decides what are dangerous goods, generally speaking, there are some exceptions, but generally speaking, what is dangerous in one mode of transport is dangerous in another. Now, in air transport, the regulations, and if we look in Indian legislation, I'm sure we will find reference to the book on the right, which is called the Technical Instructions, produced by the International Civil Aviation Organization. And basically, it will say that dangerous goods may only be transported by air in accordance with the technical instructions. This is the document which all contracting states have to use. It was produced by IATA. Well, IATA called themselves regulations, but they are not actually regulations. They are a field document produced by IATA, which reflects the international requirements of ICAO. And these are all the things that we need to consider in keeping dangerous goods safe in transport. Now, these, as I say, it's in transport, and with the topic of today's seminar about storage, there is no real mention of storage, with one or two exceptions, because the regulations are geared to keep dangerous goods safe in transport, not storage. And there are no, as far as I'm aware, international standards for storage of dangerous goods. Now, certainly there are stowage requirements on ships and in aircraft, but as regards to the actual storage in a warehouse or a port, so that's where the regulations come from. And you mentioned about ammonium nitrate. And I'll just show you, just said that the different types of ammonium nitrate that there might be. And as you rightly say, there is a form of ammonium nitrate, which is an explosive in what we call division 1.1D. And that means it is a mass explosive, has a mass explosion hazard. And basically what that means is if some of the load were to detonate, the entire load would detonate. And I'm not an explosives expert, but if we look at the sad pictures from Beirut in August, it would appear that that is what has happened, is that the whole lot has gone in one go. And you'll see on this chart, this is an extract from the the technical instructions, ammonium nitrate is forbidden for carriage as cargo on both passenger and cargo aircraft. So it cannot be carried on a passenger or cargo aircraft, although there is the extreme urgency or other circumstances. And then, as Govind said, we have another classification for ammonium nitrate, which is UN. You see a different UN number, 1942, and now it's changed its hazard from an explosive to an oxidizer. Now, an oxidizer is something which isn't necessarily flammable, but can provide oxygen to feed a fire. And in this case, it's regarded as a fairly low hazard dangerous goods. And you'll see there the quantities that we are allowed now to carry on a passenger and a cargo aircraft. So you'll see the quantities there. Don't worry too much about the packing instruction numbers, but we can go up to 25 kilos on a passenger aircraft per package. That's not per aircraft, that's per package, or 100 kilos per package on a cargo aircraft. But the important thing here is that you'll see a special provision which says that we can tests prescribed by the UN. If they don't meet those tests, they are regarded as the 1.1D, the explosive, and then they are forbidden for transport. So a shipper cannot simply say, I'm going to regard it as an oxidizer. There is a whole series of tests that they must go through to satisfy themselves that they can use the lesser classification, if you like. And you'll see at the bottom there's another a UN 2067 ammonium nitrate-based fertilizer. Again, that's allowed on passenger and cargo aircraft, but only following very stringent testing. Okay, so there, in a nutshell, if you like, is that, and there are other entries for different types of ammonium nitrate, which I haven't covered today, but you'll see in some circumstances they are forbidden completely, but if they are, and you'll see there, if they only contain not more than 2%, 0.2% of combustible substances, and cargo aircraft. Thank you, Govind.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for insight. Here, I would like to tell a very important point that Jeff raised. He said we are not in the air side, we are focusing on storage. We do not have great regulations for storage. If you ask ourselves why is so, air believes cargo should not be stored in any air terminal. Whereas in the seaport, you will always find warehouses. But in the air, never ever we can call even a cargo area where cargo is handled as warehouse. We will either call it or cargo terminal or cargo complex, because cargo is not expected to stay in an airport area. Then what type of storage we have got? Jeff, you will agree with me. We do not have storage philosophy, but we have got stowage philosophy. What is stowage is? How to load? What is the compatibility? That all have been established by the ICAO, followed by all other regulations. And when Jeff was telling, we follow the international regulations, the contracting state accepts it. What is contracting state? It's important for me to explain. It is the state of the operator. Which is the state for us? India. The Indian government has got a regulation. Yes. What do we call that regulation? We have a specific regulation called the Carriage of Dangerous Goods Rules 2003. It comes under Aircraft Act 1934 and also supported by Aircraft Rules 1937. So this is something background on Indian aviation. We do have got what you call it as civil aviation requirements. They are not rules, they are not act, but they are implementation of the rules. And those rules also pave way for how the dangerous goods are to be carried, how the dangerous goods should be kept in the cargo terminals for the process time, and how to get it loaded on the aeroplane. Thank you very much, Jack. Now I move on to Mr. Ennarasu. Why? He is actually the port man. What I want or what I expect him to tell you is, we have heard the international view of both Rangan and Mr. Jeff on the airport and the seaport. Arasu, can you give us an insight of the Indian port scenario?
Thank you very much, sir, Govindarajan, and fellow panelists, all the participants. First of all, I love to compliment Mr. J. Krishnan and Mr. Uday taking this initiative, connecting all of us together at this point in time, where the country is really need this kind of wake-up call for handling hazardous cargo containers. Once we as a country has established and proven that we are scientifically and science and technology is very well advanced, but when it comes to handling hazardous cargo, still we are a long way to go. But fortunately, the ports and terminals in India has well equipped, I would say. Why? Because last 15 years I have been associated with the major ports, non-major ports of the country, which has excellent procedures, systems and process, which is on par with the international level. So since even I was operating overseas ports in last 2 decades, where I could see that our procedures and systems absolutely very clear, and we don't have to worry at all in terms of defining the system process and handling equipment and segregating those containers in a separate containment zone, and also creating hazardous bin, and even spillage, if at all happens, there is a spillage containment program. So all those things, absolutely it is giving quite confidence to the trade and industry. While saying this, but there is a risk, and the way how the further chain of activities. It is not about handling the containers inside the port. Today, last year, the cargo handling volume of all the major ports and non-major ports put together almost 1.3 billion tons of cargo. Even with 1% of that 1.3 billion tons of cargo, which gives as a hazardous materials, it's a threat to the industry. What Mr. Rangan was mentioning, the international scenario, Lebanon incident, even Tianjin incident, and also the incident in Texas. These all incidents, every time it is getting repeated. Why there is no such a program has evolved that we are free from all these incidents? Even one incident has swept $15 billion with more than 300 people have been killed, and 80,000, 100,000 people are homeless. So it is a black mark in our maritime trade. Definitely these kind of incidents should not happen. So when I take the same stock take in Indian ports and terminals, we are very safe. Inside the port, we are very safe, since we know the cargo, the containers stow on board, very well known to everyone in the container terminal operations. And also once it is discharged from the vessel, put it onto the trailer and move to a containment zone in the yard, it is very well known to the terminal. After, at the time of delivery to the consignee, there is a real challenge. When all have been done here as per IMO class 9, all the 9 classifications, it is very well segregated. But when it goes out of the gate, port gate, it becomes common. So there only a danger comes into. Dangerous goods have to be handled very absolute care, which is missing there. When it comes to the transportation, from the port to the freight station, container freight stations, or the consignee, the importer premises, it goes on the common road. And there is no dedicated trailer available you wouldn't make out what type of cargo which is going, which is passing through the city, which nobody knows. So there is always a danger. And secondly, the truck drivers, the personnel are not trained. I would say here at this point in time, it is these chain of activities. We have to have end to end, not at the stopping at the port itself. It has to till reaches the destination, the place of destination, the consignees, the importer premises. It has to be handled very seamlessly. Not only the trailers, not only the trained truck drivers, and also you have to have a convoy system where in overseas global operating system they handle, then manage their movement of cargo from the port to the consignee premises, which are missing here. Even after reaching the freight stations, again it is put into the area, common area, and also sometimes uses the forklifts or some equipment which are not really certified to handle those hazardous materials. There is a threat. Then coming to here, in this system, there are more than 15, 16 agencies involved. Here, if the cargo meant for consignee, if it is cleared and moved straight away, absolutely no problem. Country like India, developing country, we are importing quite a lot of chemicals, quite a lot of raw materials, which really need attention that if it is not cleared, what are you going to do that? It is going to be a Herculean task. For instance, even for recently Chennai, more than 800 tons of cargo, the same ammonium nitrate, Mr. Rangan was mentioning that even 2 tons of ammonium nitrate can create a devastating effect to the whole system. But 800 tons of cargo, which was lying there for more than 6 years in a premises within the 30 kilometers of Chennai. So these kind of things are really posing threat to the entire supply chain system. Storage, handling, and delivery areas, all these areas are going to be a serious threat. We are seeing one side of the system where the IMO and IMO regulations, class 9 classifications, and we have done enough. But after the gate, port gates, we become common. We are not really equipped. And once it is not cleared, again, taking that uncleared cargo out is going to be a problem. Here, one good thing we are seeing at this point in time, the government has come up with quite a lot of initiatives, quite a lot of circulars, notification that uncleared cargo should be expeditiously cleared. Even very recently, 3-4 CBIC circular states that country like India, we have to clear uncleared cargo immediately. But unfortunately, the importer never realizing that while importing, he just abandoned the goods. He is not able to clear the goods for various reasons, abandon the goods. Customs, the custodians and the customs are really facing a problem, which is not their problem. It is a country problem. So we need to have a clarity how the government importer dumps the cargo, did not clear. What is going to be the way forward for the country? When we are marching towards 2030, 3 billion tons of cargo, which is expected, we are moving from agriculture to a manufacturing economy, and fertilizers and agriculture economy needs quite a lot of fertilizers and other chemicals for the industries and manufacturing industries. Really, truly speaking, this is the need of the hour for us. And periodic monitoring mechanism has to be there while handling those hazardous cargo containers. So I would say port and terminals are well equipped. Absolutely all the 12 major ports and also non-major ports, very clear set standard operating procedures, handling methods, handling equipment, handling personnel, all are absolutely intact. But once move out, there is a severe challenge, which is really we have to face it. I would welcome all our professionals. We have to sit together how to define and a method by which we have to educate the entire community. As someone was mentioning here, the culture, the safety culture has to come from origin to destination. So I'm sure, sir, we are in the right path. We can make the difference, and this kind of wake-up call will further strengthen our meeting the challenges. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Enough, sir. Very good insight. He is very confident that the Indian seaports are absolutely safe, they follow the regulations. At the same time, he was very particular of telling, once you get into the road, there are no controls. When it is held in the warehouses, there are no controls. Sir, I got a very pertinent question. Is it due to lack of regulations, or is it due to oversight program, or is it the don't care attitude of the community?
I would say all the three are there. One is the regulation. Supposing, say, an importer imports hazardous goods and leave those goods to the port. Absolutely, there is no regulation. There is no way to penalize him. Today, we are unable to catch him. He comes and dumps the cargo, which is his hazardous nature, which is pose threat to the entire country. He leaves. He is scot free. So the regulation is still not stringent. Regulation has to be there. We are only like whatever, we are only a receiving end. The customs and custodians, only they have to receive those goods. They have to handle it. And it is not possible for us to country like a developing country, and we are marching towards third largest economies in the next 20 years. And we have to have a stringent regulations, regulatory measures have to be there. And those things are very important at this point in time. So you all triggered the minds of the country bureaucrats and politicians, and we need to set up a system that regulation is the must. Second one is the training. The training is missing today. Country, whether the training and development in India is on par with the international levels, no. I would say still we have a long way to go. Handling cargo and containers, hazardous goods, we are not, even you have seen very stray incidents, people are using the hazardous material, they're drinking hazardous liquid and they are dying. So that means there is no awareness among all the common people. It's very important. We are the technologically sound. We can use the technology and we create those awareness through technology. We can connect. See, today Industry 4 is coming in the global system. Global information industry is all looking at Industry 4. IoT is the area which will connect all the stakeholders, which is missing today. So country like India has to take firmly, quickly, that connect all the stakeholders, handling this, specifically for the hazardous cargo.
Thank you very much. Praveen, it's something interesting for you. How do you insurance people do the risk assessment of high-risk dangerous goods, especially when the goods have been insured but abandoned? Praveen? Hello? Sorry, is Praveen is there?
Let me check, sir. Let me check.
Praveen, you want me to come back?
Uh, yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, mic was mute. I was trying to unmute that. Yeah, and basically we come across these hazardous goods in two ways. One is when it is being transported, and second when it is being stored. So your question, like when it is being abandoned, uh, basically there are two types of abandonment. One is that the importer and the consignee is not taking over the cargo. So in those cases, our liability is towards the damage of the consignment. So unless somebody comes to us for the damage, our claims we have to indemnify them if somebody is coming. So in such case, our coverage in the under the insurance policy, also the coverage at the port is for a limited period. Say for a sea consignment, it will be around 60 days. For this air consignment is 30 days.
So
So
30.
30. So beyond that, our liability is not there to the for the damage. The second option, second thing, what normally happens, there is the importer is basically finding that during transit there is a damage to the equipment and damage is too high, so he refuses to accept it. In that case, the supplier, they prefer a claim upon us, and we normally pay the claims based upon the damage and take over the material for salvaging operation, and we see how it can be salvaged, how much salvage value can be obtained from that.
Excellent, excellent. What I understand from you is, if the goods are abandoned, if there were to be the reason for that abandonment is damage, you do a damage valuation,
Yes,
accordingly you settle the claim, and the goods are taken for salvaging. That is, you have some dedicated buyers or dealers who picks up the goods on your behalf. Excellent.
correct.
Rengat sir, what do you what is your opinion on international seaports on abandoned?
Directly, I would like to dwell upon what Mr. Narasu has said. One thing is to have regulations. The other one is how well we implement these regulations. Now, after I retired from the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore in 2005, I became an independent consultant for DuPont for their DuPont Sustainable Solutions. Last 15 years, I have consulted more than 55 companies, and I wish to place on record I had the privilege of conducting the program at Wheels India, where the chairman of the Madras Chamber, Mr. Siva Saran, was one of the participants as the MD of Wheels India. What we find everywhere, it is not lack of rules or regulation, it is the willingness to make that work. Now, coming to dangerous cargo, now so many people are qualified as a MBBS and surgeon, but when you come to surgery, you have a specialist surgeon for cataract, or heart, or orthopedic. You name the body part, you have a specialist. But unfortunately, in the shipping industry, once you are a freight forwarder, you set up a company, you can deal with anything. How much they know about the DG, how much they know IMDG code, the labeling, what they declare, how they declare, is there any system that, okay, a company is qualified to deal with this kind of a cargo. If it is dangerous goods, dedicated companies because they know what they are dealing with, they know their responsibility. In this instance, I also like to tell about DuPont is a company which manufacture highly toxic chemicals. Before they sell the product to anybody, tomorrow Rangan go and buy, I want 1,000 tons of XYZ chemical, they won't sell me. I say, who are you? Why are you buying this chemical from me? What are you going to do with this chemical? How are you going to take it from my warehouse? They will ensure their responsibility. We say corporate social responsibility. They will ensure that the product that I produce safely in my facility, but till the product becomes an end product through any process, it is handled safely. And I only sell to those people who has the capacity to handle this dangerous cargo, not to any Tom, Dick and Harry with the ulterior motive. Now, coming to Singapore, international regime you are talking about, this kind of procedures are there. The National Environmental Agency is in charge for all the dangerous goods here. They work with the police force, they work with the Singapore Civil Defense, they work with the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, as well as the terminal operators. All of them jointly sit down and ensure. First of all, they have to declare if they carry DG to the MPA 12 hours before the arrival of the ship that they carry this cargo. And they have dedicated procedures to follow. Where it is, primarily here it is a transshipment cargo. Singapore doesn't, actually it's banned in Singapore. If I go through the annexure for the National Environmental Agency Act, ammonium nitrate is not even mentioned. Whereas all other cargo they have mentioned what is the maximum amount you can bring into the port for transshipment. And even during the transshipment, there are guidelines precisely what they are supposed to do. Who can handle these things? And CCTV surveillance 24/7. So, codification. Another aspect, when Singapore became independent, we want to have a criminal penal code, procedure code. What we did, lock, stock and barrel Indian penal code is adopted into Singapore. Only the logo changed from Ashoka Chakra to Singapore logo. Everything else same. The similarity and there. But how do you enforce this? That is where your success or failure happens. So the question is, I can have a airtight regulation, procedures, everything, but who is implementing? And above all, when dangerous cargo is abandoned, never mind, I am not able to trace the insurer, I am not able to trace the owner, I am not able to trace whoever it is. But I am the regulatory agency, I know what this cargo can cause damage. Do these people are empowered to deal with the cargo, which is unclaimed, but it is posing a danger to the community, to dispose it off in the appropriate manner? And if it costs money, okay, in Beirut case, if only they had power to waive off the $100,000 and allow the ship to get up, Beirut could have been saved today. Now, who will write off the 100,000? That is the problem. That's a problem. They don't have powers. They can't see beyond their nose. So, regulation is one point, and all the advanced countries, developed countries, they have systems in place. They have systems in place, and it is enforced. That's what I would place on record.
Thank you, Mr. Rangan. We could understand. Mere regulations will not be of use. The implementation certainly matters. We are aware of it. Excellent. Jeff, when we come to implementation and oversight programs, from the conversation, from what I understand from the market, air implementation is reasonably far superior than in the sea transportation. I'm sure CAA UK, you would have had opportunity to pull up people, to penalize people for undeclared dangerous goods as an incident, or an unclaimed dangerous goods, you should have a lot of experiences. When I draw the parallel, Mr. Praveen was telling that from the insurance angle, they allow 30 days. But if you go with the aviation law or procedures, I may not say as a lot, but as a procedures, we don't allow more than 15 days. Because 15 days, we are supposed to raise what you call it as an IRP, irregularity report, and it empowers the people to dispose of the material or sell the material in single or multiple lots even. There's so much provisions are there and it is being done. Can you share from your experience unclaimed dangerous goods lying in the airports, which you have done oversight audits on behalf of your CAA UK? Thanks, Jeff. Please tell me.
Well, of course, goods that are left unclaimed weren't our concern, because our concern was implementing the requirements that enabled them to be transported safely on an aircraft. When really where our interest ends. And so you have, we would be looking to perhaps another government agency who would maybe license the airport or whatever to see whether there was any breach of storage regulations. Our regulatory enforcement was limited to generally shippers who perhaps were not declaring dangerous goods. In my experience, it was usually because they didn't understand the regulations. It was very rare for people to deliberately flout the regulations, but it did happen occasionally where perhaps for whatever reason a shipper thought the airline wouldn't carry their goods, so instead of calling them explosives, they called them books or something else. That does happen, but it's quite rare. Now, you talked about the contracting state. So is a contracting state to what's called the Chicago Convention. It was a convention signed towards the end of the Second World War, and I think just about every country in the world has signed the convention. And so we are bound to have what we call surveillance, inspection, and enforcement procedures. Now, these will differ across the world. You'll find that, for example, in the United States, the fines are in the millions of dollars. Elsewhere in the world, they're not as severe, but we all have to have enforcement procedures. Now, in the UK, the maximum is an unlimited fine and up to 2 years in prison. In my time at the CAA, only one person ever went to prison, and that was for the undeclared shipment of the chemicals which were forbidden on an aircraft. And in fact, when we went to court, our chemistry advisor said that had the chemicals found their way into the air conditioning system, it could have killed half of the people on board the 747. So that was severe, and that person went to prison for a year. But in terms of after they've been carried, it's not really it's not an aviation regulator's concern. Our concern ends really when the goods have got safely to their point of destination.
Jeff, I agree with you. But if shipments are destined to UK airports as a destination, and if the consignee has not taken delivery, your aerodrome is at risk. I'm not talking about export. I'm talking about import.
Yep.
So you have a concern of your airport safety, and goods which have come into UK are like that.
Yep. So as I said, it would then pass to another government agency, because a warehouse at an airport is little different to a warehouse off an airport, where laws will apply to the safe storage of chemicals.
That's right.
Interest, it wouldn't be their ability, it wouldn't be in their remit to enforce regulations. It would then pass to probably what we call the health and safety executive, who are responsible for things on the ground, if you like.
That's the answer I was expecting from you. Arasu,
Yes, sir.
you saw the difference. Airport regulations are governed by civil aviation regulations. Whereas once it is not there, or when it goes out of the airport and stored elsewhere, the land regulations come. Now let us look at a seaport and a CFS. Is the seaport regulations are applicable to CFS?
Yeah. Sir, I have to again say that really country like India, we are very good in handling containers, cargo as per IMO standard, but the same impact, same impetus not given to clearing the uncleared cargo or disposing the uncleared cargo. Like same, I could recollect what Mr. Rangan was saying, $100,000 Beirut incident. Similar thing, we are also, same thing is happening here, prevailing here. Even though Section 48 of Customs Act 1962 stipulates if the cargo and containers not cleared, you can dispose, there are guidelines. But the guideline is absolutely, it's a very long, tedious process. It takes more than 6 to 8 months to bring the uncleared cargo into the list and dispose it. And there is no special provision available for disposing the hazardous cargo containers. Hazardous cargo and containers have to be treated, how we treat them like handling. Those handling, we are taking extra care, extra privilege, all we are giving from onboard ship, terminal, ports, and moving to the CFS. But the same thing which is not happening at the time of disposal. It has all been put into one basket. Then the Customs Act, yes, we are not empowered to give that priority. We can only give the priority only on the basis of paper, but not, there is no empowerment which is, as of, in my knowledge, there is no empowerment given to, the board or anything that, yes, hazardous cargo, you go and take and clear up quickly. There is no such empowerment. So I think this is a very right time for the country to look at the privileges how to be given to those hazardous containers and hazardous cargo while disposing. Second one is, we always look at the cost benefit. We are, when the cargo is already cleared, the importer has abandoned the cargo, but still we are waiting. The ports waiting for getting the dues from the importer. Customs waiting for to get the recovery of duty from the importer, where already is raised the hand. He is already, he is not there in the system. Still we have to write to them. We have to wait for them. So then that case he doesn't respond within the stipulated period, maybe 60 days, 90 days. Till again you are keeping the bomb underneath of the chair. The 90 days, 6 months it goes. The second one is, again you are setting the value. Even if they go for auctioning, the value all they put there, that value no one would come. The value of the cargo, the assessment which is there, people will not come for easily for that. It goes for first action, second action, third action. Then it goes in number of action process. So this is a real tricky situation for India. If at all, very unfortunately, the cargo is not reaching the destination, it is lying in the port or CFS, but there should be a mechanism evolved to handle them expeditiously and without waiting for recovery of money from those uncleared cargo. And that should be the game changer for the country at this point in time.
Excellent. Also, having heard you, can I tell you, in India, money matters more than the safety, number one. Number two, probably we may not openly articulate in our country. As I understand, custom rules and regulations are more prevalent in a seaport than other regulations. That is the focus. That is, customs have got a right for the cargo, but the safety The other authorities have got a say, and the other authorities must be in a position to discharge their duty, not worried about the commercial implications. Let's see how we can take it further.
But sir, here I would like to have a touch upon. See, countries, when we worked in overseas country, it is an integrated approach. But when it comes to handling such matters, we are working in silos. We are absolutely, we are not, the port is not looking at his own way, his own agenda. Customs, they wanted to get their duty. After that only they can release the cargo. The shipping lines wants to have their the freight. So when it goes, there are more than 15 agencies involved in this. There is no integrated approach. There is a silo created, but we are keeping the country into such a threat. The cargo and containers lying there in an open area. Incident can happen anytime, and it can be a devastating effect to the whole country. And it will create absolutely a kind of situation that no one would imagine. So this point in time, there is a proactiveness there in the government, customs and custodians. So because of which we are able to avoid a lot of incidents at this point in time. But still, they have to be empowered. There should be an empowerment for handling hazardous cargo and containers. This is what my submission is.
Excellent. I go to Praveen.
Yes.
Suppose there are penalties either provided by the civil aviation authorities or by the port authorities. I'm not talking about customs penalty. I'm talking about compliance penalty on safety. Do you have a provision to cover that in your insurance cover?
No, if all the penalties we are not covering, because this is something we will be ensuring an inefficiency or unlawful activity.
Okay.
So we normally cover the public liability, but that is if the insured or client is not at fault and something happens. So that those things we cover. Say in this Public Liability Act 1992, following this Bhopal incident, the state came out with a policy that the companies who are handling this hazardous material, they are not exactly dangerous material what we are talking about, but any hazardous material, they have to take a policy, and that policy will respond to this the amount awarded by the local collector. The idea behind this was that normally for the legal liability, somebody has to go to the court, and it takes lot of time for the recovery from the penalty from the court. But this was something the local collector can take a decision very quickly and give some award to the interim award to the sufferer.
Very good. Coming back to that, you said public liability.
Yes.
When the goods are stored, especially dangerous goods, it results in an accident.
Yes.
Take the example of the Lebanon, or even certain dangerous goods pose a problem in the port or in the CFS. Public in general are affected because of that accident. Maybe
Yes.
death, maybe loss of property. Whether your insurance will cover the third party liabilities.
Yeah, as I said about this Public Liability Act, the Act liability is only for the personal damage to the third party. But otherwise also there is a policy which is the general liability policy, normally called CGL, Comprehensive General Liability. So that policy takes care of all the legal liabilities to the third parties. I mean, it may be a loss of life, it may be loss of property also.
But based on your experience in our country, when people insure goods in transport, especially in warehousing or in port, do they ask for third-party insurance? Because if something happens in a CFS, and the people around are affected, there should be a mechanism to compensate them by the insurance.
Yes.
Do our people come voluntarily for such insurance?
See, as far as this public liability, the liability policy, the Act policy, that is compulsory if they are handling certain threshold quantity of the hazardous material. They have given a schedule of the name and this quantity. But that policy is normally taken because that is statutory. But the other policy, mainly the corporates are taking, but say this is not very common. Not everybody is taking it.
It is because it has not happened so far. Why should we bother about it?
Yes,
That should be
people
the
are
reason. The reason does
complacent.
not happen. We are not.
And even if it happens, they say it has happened, so it will not happen.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Jeff, you know this Madras Chamber of Commerce represents a vast community, and we are from Madras. And Madras, you know, the other name is Detroit of India. There are a lot of auto companies. So a lot of focus is on EV growth, EV productions. So we are likely to use large quantities of lithium batteries, preferably the lithium ion ones. And we are also looking at activities taking place on lithium ion battery production. When it starts producing, we are going to see quite good amount of movement of lithium batteries, both by ship as well as by air. You know, Jeff, you headed the lithium battery panel and you are actively involved on lithium battery concepts. Can you share some insight where we should be careful, especially in the light of what is happening today because of dangerous goods?
Thank you, Govind. Yes, of course. We've all become very reliant on lithium batteries. Where would we be without lithium batteries and our mobile phones and our laptops and increasingly our cars? They've given us new freedoms. They are wonderful devices, but they have to be treated with respect. The slides we're going to share with us today, just to show you I've just got a couple of if I can, if the moderator can just help me share my screen. Or perhaps not to worry. Is the host there?
Swarna, step in.
One second.
Saraswati, just enable the.
Yeah, I just talking. Yeah.
No, I'm not able to share my content, unfortunately, but it's okay. I can talk instead.
Sir, you can share it now, sir.
Yes, I can. Okay, fantastic. So let's go over here. Okay, so let me see on here. Okay, so lithium batteries have been around actually for a long time, although they haven't been in regular use until maybe a couple of decades or so ago. And there have obviously been a number of well-publicized incidents that have caught people's attention. Now, I'll show you some incidents which have got people interested in the dangers of batteries. But what I will say is what I say to everybody: there are two types of lithium battery. And I don't mean rechargeable and non-rechargeable. There are two types of lithium battery: those that comply with very, very stringent requirements specified by the United Nations and ICAO and IATA, and those that don't. And it's those that don't comply, be they counterfeits or fakes or whatever, have invariably we see an incident and someone says, oh, it's lithium batteries. And all batteries are tarred with the same brush, which is not correct. It seems to me a lot of the time the reputable industry is paying the price for the part of industry who will not comply. We all know that there are parts of the world where to counterfeit and fake is quite acceptable. Well, that isn't the case in the case of a battery, where it can be very dangerous. But if I give you a bit of a background, what started to get people interested in batteries, back in 2006, this UPS DC-8 freighter, you can see the aircraft is burnt out on the crown of the airplane. Everybody evacuated safely, and nobody can say that it was caused by batteries, but the fire originated in a part of the airplane where there were a number of battery-powered devices, so things like credit card readers, laptops, cell phones, that kind of thing. Regulators, particularly in the United States, interested in the hazards posed by batteries. We then go forward a few years, and in less than a year, 2 747 freighters were lost, both fatal accidents. Now, the top one, the UPS flight departed from Dubai heading towards Cologne. A very severe in-flight fire started. The crew attempted to return to Dubai, but sadly the airplane crashed and both crew were killed. Now again, it's impossible to say that batteries caused the accident, but in the investigation, it was clear that a number of non-compliant batteries had been offered illegally to UPS for carriage. And then a little while later, Asiana, the 747 freighter, very similar circumstances, a fire on the aircraft. Now, the aircraft was carrying a large automotive battery, but again, this battery had met all of the requirements, it had undergone extra tests, and so just to simply say because there was a fire and because there was a battery on board, that must have caused it, isn't correct. And nobody knows that whether the fire was caused by a battery. It's often cited as a battery accident, which is completely unfair. And we have to be careful. Batteries are often, we see a fire, and it's almost, it was caused by batteries until we prove otherwise. But this accident is held up as possibly involving batteries. But this little video here, I don't know if it'll work over the internet, but this shows the power in a battery. Now, I don't know if you can see my cursor here. This is a scooter which is on charge in an apartment in Beijing. And you'll see the destructive power when things go wrong. So you'll see there that that was a scooter, and here is an example. As I said, you can buy just about anything off the internet now, and this was a case back in 2012 where a person had bought a laptop battery online, and it was trucked from China to Hong Kong and carried on a Cathay Pacific freighter to London, and onloading, the mailbag burst into flames. And this was a counterfeit battery, which had been claiming to be something that it wasn't. And this is the real danger. It's not the batteries produced by the reputable companies. It's the batteries out. Ignore the rules. And that's why it's so important for anyone shipping batteries to satisfy themselves that what they are shipping is in compliance with the regulations. And that's not always easy. I accept that, but these are the kind of dangers they pose. We also haven't got time. I could talk about batteries for many, many hours. To say that we have regulations in place on batteries. We're not allowed to ship any batteries if they are on their own on passenger aircraft, for example. And you'll see these newly developed labels and marks. So on the label there on the left-hand side is then the new Class 9 miscellaneous label, because a hazard label is meant to communicate a hazard. For many years, it was just simply the black and white diamond, which didn't communicate any hazard as far as batteries are concerned. So we now have a new label. And the lithium battery mark on the right is also something which is in place. And the mark across all modes of transport. Different restrictions apply to quantities and how you can carry them, how you pack them, etc. But they are harmonised across the modes. So, in summary, batteries are essential. We all want them. They are a fantastic invention, but it is absolutely essential that they comply with the regulations to keep everybody safe.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Because as you rightly said, even for quite some time I have been telling, lithium batteries are bound to stay. We have to know how to transport a lithium battery rather than making them as forbidden goods. Thank you very much for that. I go to Mr. Rangan. Sir, you were very candid when you were telling regulations are there, implementation is an issue. One of the ways of implementation is oversight programs. To make the oversight program meaningful, training and education becomes important, as RSO said. But everything has been done, training is there, awareness is there. In the oversight, you find a lot of non-compliance that can be corrected, not by the carrot policy, but by the stick policy only. What do you think the liability regime should be or the penal action should be? How does overseas look at it?
See, this comes down to the fundamental responsibility of the individual. Again, we have to differentiate between different countries, how strictly the laws are enforced. If the law enforcement officer is not doing his job, forget about, I have not met with any incident, but he having failed to perform his regulatory function in the manner expected of him, because he is being trained to do that, what is the consequence that happens to him? Now, I'll take an example of Singapore, where there were a lot of industrial accidents were taking place. The government became very, very concerned. So they completely overhauled the workplace safety and health act. Now, what they did there, the safety officer or the dedicated personnel who has been trained and certified by the ministry to perform certain critical roles, like if it's going to enter the confined space, and he is to certify that the confined space is fit enough for entry for what. If he doesn't do his job properly, he doesn't go and test the atmosphere, he issues a false certificate as though it is safe. And let us say somebody enters and then he faints. Let us say, let us not go to fatality, which is possibility, and they determine this has happened. The current revised act will criminalize the incompetence of the officer who issued the certificate. And there have been cases where safety officers have been jailed in Singapore when he has not performed his duty. So ultimately, the oversight person also has to live up to his responsibility and expectation to discharge towards the industry he is serving. That doesn't happen. In several countries, the oversight officers are on the take and they say anything you want them to say. When such things are taking place, it's very difficult. Now, take even in the Lebanon case. The 2013 value of the 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, the market value is $700,000 US. 2013. Today, I don't know. I am not in the commodity trade. Today, what is the ammonium nitrate value? I don't know today. But 2013. Now, we talk about regulation empowerment. If you have a $700,000 value material in your hand, which is highly dangerous and can produce a calamity for 15 billion. Does the system have anything empowered anybody? Yes, make use of this and release 100,000 due to you. You take it, 600,000 deposit in some common fund. At least take away the risk from my shores. Nobody has done it. So the point I would like to emphasize again repeatedly, you can have a good oversight mechanism. Now, again, we need to ensure that mechanism is functioning. It is all by people. In this respect, I will have to, except Jeff, I hope everybody, most of the audience understand Tamil. The Pattukotai Kalyana Sundaram has written a poem, திருடனாக பார்த்து திருந்தா விட்டால் திருட்டை ஒழிக்க முடியாது. People who carry out the job, they have to refine themselves. They have to do what is expected of them. No amount of policing can eradicate theft unless the thief decides that I will not steal from tomorrow. So, this is the point we need to do. That is why when NRSU says safety culture, I have been working at it, at this, the mindset change towards safety. When it comes to safety culture, all these come into the picture. All these come into the picture to make the entire system safe. That means if I am a surgeon, I want to do a surgery, I have certain procedures to follow. I need to go and sterilize my equipments which I am going to use for my surgery. I need to scrub myself. I need to make sure the operation theatre is sterile. Now, if I don't do anything and the patient dies and he gets infected, and the surgeon claims, now tell me, what is the mistake I have done? My surgery is perfect. It is his fate, he got infected, he died. But he did not follow the procedure. So the point you can have any amount of things everywhere, but ultimately the individuals have to rise up. Like why Abdul Kalam, when he left as the president of India, he had only 2 suitcases. Right? He didn't carry anything. When his brother and his family visited Delhi, he paid for their transportation, he paid for their boarding and lodging, everything. We need this kind of approach. If I am a freight forwarder, I am dealing dangerous goods. What is my responsibility? First of all, am I certified by the system to handle that cargo?
Sure.
Am I labeling it correctly? Am I informing the ship correctly? I mean, with Singapore alone handled 37 million containers. How much you think we can individually check all these things? We have to depend on people, depend on the system.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank you very much.
To supplement what you have said, maybe 25 years back, I was in an FAA inquiry in Jamaica in USA. I asked the attorney, why so much of penalty for such a small violation? And the attorney told me very simply, sir, we have to penalize heavily so that the rogue activity is not repeated. Very powerful word. The rogue activity. What they meant by rogue activity is you do not have a social responsibility of securing the world, and you are more concerned about the commercial angles. Similarly, I still remember there was an excellent airline, I'm sure Jeff will remember, on the Flying Tigers 40 years back. One of my mentors in Flying Tigers, by name Alan Hollander, we were talking and I told him, okay, it's cargo. Because we have a sentiment, cargo doesn't speak. Cargo doesn't speak. So cargo doesn't have life. And he jovially told me that day, Govind, cargo will not speak, but one day it will laugh and you will cry. One day it will laugh and you will cry. This is what is exactly happening nowadays because of dangerous goods. Before we end up the session, I have been told by administration there are a lot of questions pouring in, but I have no idea whom these questions are being addressed. Let me see. Dorna, can you push the questions?
Govind, let me read a couple of important ones which you can direct it to one of the panelists. Uday here.
Excellent.
Okay. Now, one of the question is pertaining to what is your view on central monitoring cell on storage of dangerous goods?
Good.
You can shoot it to one of the panelists, whomever you think.
It is storage of
Central
goods.
monitoring cell on storage of goods.
Excellent. Maybe airport, maybe seaport, because today I got a call from airport also. Arasu?
Yes, sir. I think it's a very pertinent question at this point in time, where even Chennai has moved something like 800 tons of ammonium nitrate very recently. So it's a need of the hour for the country creating that kind of central monitoring cell, which will give quite a lot of impetus handling dangerous goods. And it should be put in a separate way of handling, as Mr. Rangan and also Jeff, all they have mentioned that international practice. But once you create your own dedicated system, yes, we have to progress from like today 1.3 billion tons annually, the cargo handling which will go to double to 3 billion tons in the next 15 to 20 years. We naturally have to handle quite a lot of dangerous goods cargo. Creating a separate monitoring cell will give a confidence to the trade and industry, also confidence to the country like India that he is well prepared to handle such kind of cargo. And I would also say that the central, just it's not creating central monitoring cell, we also use the technology. Today, we are the knowledge capital for the whole world. When technology comes, IoT, it is like a end to end. You connect all those, even RFID connect. See, you look at the Tianjin incident in 2015, sodium cyanide, calcium carbide, ammonium nitrate, potassium nitrate. These are all the four categories of cargo have been stacked together. When there was a fire broke out, fire was extinguished using the water, and calcium carbide released the acetylene, got detonated the ammonium nitrate. So we are not aware. Today, if the containers are there, there are 100 containers are lying there, there is a fire broke out, we are not in a position to trace those containers. So the central monitoring cell should be completely technologically driven, and it should serve the purpose of connecting all the stakeholders, including the fire tender, fire brigades, state, central, port, all those things. The infrastructure facility should be there, and more so, customs. Somebody has to take the lead. One agency cannot be more than one agency. The central monitoring should be governed by one agency, should have a seamless connect to all the stakeholders.
Excellent. Excellent. What Arasu tells is, we need a centralized monitoring agency. However, it should not be a recommending organization, it should be implemental organization. Sometimes they may have to take a firm stand of what to do with the boat if they are inclined or uncertain. When too many agencies come, probably the focus gets diluted. Excellent. Yes, sir. Can you go for the second question?
Yes, the second one is there is a port in eastern India which actively imports ammonium nitrate. Each vessel carries around 40,000 metric tons. They are stored in the port and they are used by rail for explosive makers in a neighboring state called Chhattisgarh. So, rail movement, are they concerned or are they well educated in handling is what?
Okay. Any other panelists?
Sir, I would say that handling ammonium nitrate is not an issue here. It is only how you prepared ourselves in terms of handling those dangerous goods. The country was handling all along more than several million tons of cargo ammonium nitrate handled for fertilizers and also mining activities. Absolutely, there is no any issue related to handling. But how it is safely handled, how it is segregated, whether it is, see the incident like Beirut, when there was a welding activity, some stash activities is going alongside of the ammonium nitrate, naturally it detonates. And similar activities only how you well prepared to handle those in a containment way. That's very important. So it is where we are recommending, it is where we are discussing that, yes, handling mode is not a problem. It can
Handling
be rail
effectively.
mode, it can be road mode, it can be ship mode, barge mode, not a problem.
I think Mr. Rangan wants to say something.
Mr.
on
Rangan.
this. Okay, I'm sorry. Coming back to that question again, for the benefit of viewers,
By itself,
as Jeff very rightly did, the regulations for all modes of transports are given by the respective mode authorities. For example, IMO gives for sea, ICAO gives for air. There is a surface transportation. The surface transportation again are of two. You have got the road and you have got the rail. But all the mode transportation, the United Nations provides the regulations. Each one of us picks it up. When it comes to surface transportation, Europe has got an excellent regulation called the ADR. It covers the entire Europe. Do we have such regulations in India? Yes. We have a rail regulations. We have got a road regulations. In addition, we have got a storage regulations which is provided by Environmental Ministry. So in order to make everything as an harmonized regulation, Government of India has constituted a working group now. People are meeting, people are discussing, especially thanks to Mr. Nitin Gadkari. It is his personal initiative. Quite soon, we have a well-publicized, harmonized regulation for all modes of transport, hopefully. That question is.
This is something to do with insurance. What one of the observations is, participant says he has zoned out about insurance companies' experience. He's naming all the insurance companies' experience and capability to assess a questionable cargo. They talk only about the liability without knowing the repercussions. What is
Probably
this?
risk assessment, Praveen.
Yeah. Can you please repeat the question?
He says they have their own doubt about the insurance company's experience and the capability to assess.
See,
Insurance companies only talk about liabilities without knowing the repercussions.
That is the ability to assess the risk.
Yeah. See, this when we are handling the equipment, this goods, the first thing is the transportation that is coming under our marine insurance. So marine insurance is the oldest insurance, and it is dating back to 14th century. So in fact, the collective experience is we have collective experience, and we utilize that. As far as liability is concerned, obviously many a time perhaps we may not be aware because we expect the insured to declare all the facts, because we normally say the insurance contract is the contract of good faith, utmost good faith. So we expect them to disclose everything and all the material fact, and we expect them to follow all the rules and regulations. And that is something perhaps is not happening. So that is a challenge we have, and perhaps you are right. If this is a region we are not aware of the liability we are taking, particularly in the public liability. Now, see, the practices of storage, like in the Tangian case, the storage was the responsibility of a private firm, and there it was not done properly. I mean, there were many chemicals over there, and they did not know what are the chemicals, and when they went to douse the fire, they initiated another fire because of the water reactive chemicals. So they were not aware what is stored where and how the fire is to be handled. So this way, they are the private companies, they could not handle it properly. But in the Peru case, this is not a private company, this is a government authority themselves, which are not handling the things properly, but they are not doing the things which they are supposed to do. So, and we have the experience of our, we know about from our experience, from the collective experience of all the insurance industry.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
Can you go for the next question?
Yes, Govind. What, in your view, must be the industry's initiative to increase the awareness of proper storage and transport of hazardous material like lithium batteries and cells? Is there an initiative for the industries? Have they signed up? Is what it is.
Jeff, you would like to give? You are in lithium batteries? Or you want an Indian perception? I will come. Let us take the global perception one from Jeff. Jeff, you are
very technologically challenged. So it's important, I think, that obviously all agencies want the same thing. We all want safety, but it's important that government bodies engage with their trade organisations, shippers, freight forwarders, handling agents, for the benefit of everybody. I'd be interested to hear what the Indian perception, or from you, Govind, as to what you would see happening in India. But certainly, back in we created groups in Europe, European liaison groups that all regulators can contribute and learn, so that everyone knows. We can, so that training is available to everybody and that kind of thing. So all I would say is, because I know that it's increasing in size in India, that all agencies get involved from it'll say right from the top, from the government all the way down to the actual use of the device, providing everybody knows and familiar with the regulations. That's got to be the best basis for safety.
Okay, thank you. When I tell from the Indian perspective, we need to create a lot of awareness as far as the lithium battery is concerned. I'm sure we have to draw a plan, and we have done something on air mode. We are doing it, but more precisely or more in a constructive way, we should have flow charts and all those things for like a proper SOP for people to do it. We will work on it. Next question.
Can I go to the next one? Yeah. This is the last one. How liable and responsible are training schools on providing training on transportation and storage of dangerous goods? If training and awareness are very important, how easy is to set up one and train the people properly? Is there a responsibility attached?
Okay, as a trainer, let me answer. Then I will call Jeff and I will call others. Today, if you really ask me, many people from the industry get trained only for one thing, because a qualified person only can sign the shipper's declaration. So they want a certificate. That's the first problem. If you look at it from the freight forwarder side, they must have 2 people qualified, so we want 2 certificates. That's the level of training. One of the ways of bringing real training is we have to move from all types of dangerous goods training to specific commodities of a shipper. Suppose a shipper is having only flammable liquid, he should be made a specialist in flammable liquid. If he is radioactive material, I was training some isotope exporters on 5.1 and 1.1D, because that is what the structure wants. So if you are training for radioactive material, Let us train the radioactive people. If you are training people for 5.1 oxidizers, for example, Sivahasi people, a lot of people come for ammonium nitrate. We train them only for 5.1. So we have to work on it. Other countries have come. Other countries, they have got this type of focus training. Probably we have to get into that to make the training more meaningful. We should do that. We are working on it. Hopefully, we get the government support also on that. Jeff, would you like to join your UK requirements of training?
Certainly, and of course, when I was at the CAA, I was involved in the setting up of the training scheme under which I now train. So I'm seeing both sides of the fence. It's important to bear in mind that the United Nations talks about training, and as do all of the modes of transport. And broadly speaking, you've got general awareness training and then function-specific training and emergency training. What I regularly see is people do a broad brush course and think they're trained in everything, when of course they're not trained in very much at all. By doing a 3-day or a 5 everything, you need the additional function-specific training as well, because you may sit on a course all week and may never talk about the particular items that you actually ship. So you would need to, generally, you will often have to follow up training with function-specific training. And what we do, certainly when I left the CAA, I was determined to tailor training to, for example, if all you are shipping is nail polish, I will only train you in nail polish. If all you are shipping is lithium batteries, that is all we will talk about for 2 days.
Good. I go to Arasu before I go. Arasu and Mr. Rangan. How do you think the IMDG training, there are two people, one is the onshore and the onboard loading, ship trainers. Ship companies have trained them very well, but how do you find the shore people training globally? Indian perspective, let Arasu will give, and global perspective, I would request Mr. Rangan to give.
When it comes, Mr. Rangan sir, you can go ahead with the global perspective. Yeah.
Okay. Again, I will talk about Singapore and then the other countries. Here, the training, especially for maritime people, we are guided by the STCW Convention of the International Maritime Organization. IMDG training is codified there. What should you cover? How it should be done? And the institutions which provide these trainings are certified by the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore. And the people who provide the training to the students, they are all certified. They are again approved by the administration. That is for the shipping. And coming to the safety, we are talking about generally safety. The Ministry of Manpower is responsible for providing for training regime, monitoring the training regime for all shore side activity. In other words, you have to be an operator at the terminal, container terminal, general cargo, bulk cargo, forklift operator, crane operator, or in the construction industry, you are a scaffolder. Every single activity has been identified, and for each activity at different levels, at the worker level, at the supervisory level, at the managerial level, they have developed a syllabus, they have approved institutions, they have approved trainers. Okay, I can get all the information, I'm fully knowledgeable, I'm equipped. The fundamental question is, do I apply the knowledge when I want to carry out my work?
Okay.
Application of the knowledge. The great Confucius, the philosopher of China, the essence of knowledge is to apply.
Exactly.
And that is what we are not doing. Generally, The most common example, how many people who are driving who doesn't know when you see a red light, you must stop. Now, why so many incidents are happening? Because we beat the red light. Is it due to lack of knowledge? Is it due to lack of training? No. I have everything, but I don't apply the knowledge, hoping that nothing will happen to me.
Well said, well said.
Until one day it happens. So there are strict regime, but when it comes to shipping, let us say, Govindarajan said, I hold a certificate of competency. Whereas the first two qualification, my BSc Physics and BE Engineering, I can do any amount of mischief, mistake because of those two qualifications, resulting in major incidents. People can get killed, but my degree will die with me. It will be buried along with me. But my certificate of competency, tomorrow when I was sailing or previously sailing as chief engineer, an incident happens, inquiry takes place, and I am found deficient in discharging. That means I am no more competent to hold the certificate. The certificate can be withdrawn, it can be suspended, whatever it is. Then I have to retake the exam before I qualify to sail. So academic qualifications, these things are not there, whereas professional qualifications, these things are attached. So one is you can have any amount of training, but we must inculcate. That is why we repeatedly say the DuPont philosophy: culture, culture, culture.
Safety culture.
Get across the board. I must apply correctly what I know. Then only we have achieved. Thank you, sir.
Arsu, 2 minutes for you.
Yeah, I think he has hit on the nail, Mr. Rangan has hit on the nail. When it comes to India, see now Government of India has come with quite a lot of training program, even Skill India program, which is very evident training. We as a country need skilled workforce. So absolutely it's not difficult for the country like India, where the youth population, also our level of IQ and education system, definitely there is a level which we can raise the bar. Only we have to structurally, we have to evolve certain methods that dangerous goods cargo have to be taken care, and all the maritime institutes like IMU is there, Ahmed University is there, Nashimoji is there, a lot of institutes there. We have to bring those institutes together, how a curriculum and also the training system. Then also logistics skill India program, which is also there, like truckers, like today 200,000 truckers, the trailers, those drivers specific, the executive, the operator specific, the crane operator specific, executive specific. Like that, we have to custom made training, and it is not difficult. Now digital system has come in. So I think we will not take much time to raise the bar and create awareness. It's only structural reformation which is needed at this point in time.
Excellent. That confidence, the self-confidence and the commitment is what is required. So now it is time up, gentlemen. I'm so happy that you are in a position to express your views. Thank you, Jeff. It's your evening tea time. Enjoy your tea. Rangan, it's your dinner time. Please join your family for dinner. And of course, Arasu and Praveen, it's our time to say cheers. Let's at least virtually do the cheers.
It's
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
And MCCI, can you please take?
Yeah, thank you. Ashwin?
Ashwin.
Hope Ashwin is there. Mr. Uday, otherwise you could do that.
Ashwin was there, ma'am.
He was, but I'm not.
Whether I can see him. He's active.
He's here, ma'am. He's here. I've unmuted him.
It's because of you. He was muted.
Oh, you know, ma'am.
Okay, Ashwin, you can start now. No. Mr. Uday?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Ashwin, stepping in for you.
Yeah, please do that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Sri Govindrajan. I would first thank Sri Krishnan, our General Committee member who tossed this idea of having this program. And of course, Sri Govindrajan, the moderator. Both of them had designed and structured this program entirely. And thank you both specifically for drawing in the lovely resource persons we've had in this panel. They have shared indeed their own perspectives, and quite evidently, Mr. Rangan seems to be disturbed in terms of how implementation is not happening. As does Jeff say, small mistakes of a carrier which is not being done, rightly not being done, like UPS, one of the example he gave, caused such a huge loss. Likewise, Praveen, from his insurance perspective, and NLSU from the port and terminals perspective, they did share their views and opinions. There are other questions specifically to Indian perspective, but they are talking about certain procedures, why it is not being followed. We are not competent to quote or reply on that, so I have not taken those questions. So it was evident 2 hours have flown that the material and the time spent is a quality time. I'm sure all of us have gained something to take away from this discussion. Thank you, one and all. I thank you, our president, and I thank the back office of the chamber for putting in this wonderful presentation live without a flaw. Thank you, one and all. Good evening.
Thanks a lot. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Govindan sir. Thank you, Krishnan sir. Thank you, all fellow panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very kind.
Allah.